Donetsk, a city in eastern Ukraine, is said to have been liberated by Ukraine from several towns. Ukraine asserts that it has reclaimed approximately 175 square kilometers of its land during the Russian invasion on Wednesday and Thursday nights, as a long-planned counterattack gains momentum. A well-known Russian war blogger says that Ukraine's HIMARS are being used to attack Russian locations in the south of the country right now on the front lines. In areas like eastern Donetsk and southern Zaporizhzhia, high-mobility artillery rocket systems are being deployed without delay for immediate use. In order for Kyiv's military to attempt to penetrate Russian forces with the HIMARS, they precisely targeted the sophisticated defenses that the Russian army had constructed. Getting the HIMARS out of the trenches is harder than attacking with tanks. Storm Shadow missile systems were recently purchased by the Ukrainian military from the United Kingdom. The military is currently making better use of the new weapon, which significantly increases Kyiv's capacity for long-range strikes. Since the first few weeks of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Kremlin's forces have relied on the strategy of starting large artillery bombardments to destroy Ukrainian positions and then moving through the rubble. When this was impossible, they sent human tides into urban areas to gain territory at great expense. After their arrival almost a year ago, the high-mobility artillery rocket systems quickly earned a lot of respect from Kyiv's forces. After these truck-mounted, highly mobile systems were used to precisely strike Russian command centers, ammunition depots, and bridges, experts hailed them as a game-changing weapon. It is difficult to halt Russia's expansion in those parts of the country due to Russia's numerical advantage in men, weapons, and air power, as well as the length of time it took to construct large defensive barriers, particularly in southern Ukraine. There are currently no developments in Ukraine that Moscow has formally endorsed. However, well-known military analysts in Russia claimed that after gaining control of roughly 2 villages, Ukrainian forces were moving in groups south. Regardless of the way that Ukraine hasn't yet gained a lot of headway, the move has proactively been its quickest in the past 7 months. Last week, Ukraine's forces launched a new offensive effort after months of signaling. The precise beginning date is unknown. According to U.S. officials, D-Day occurred on June 4. A large-scale offensive on 5 sectors of the front in the southern Donetsk area was reported by Russia's defense ministry on June 5 as new Ukrainian operations were underway. On June 8, Russian military bloggers and defense officials released the first comprehensive accounts of full-scale combat, with new clashes reported in at least 3 regions. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on June 15 that Russia had lost 34,430 soldiers since the start of the invasion on February 24, 2022. The report also stated that Russia had lost 1,509 tanks, 3,635 armored fighting vehicles, 220 aircraft, 188 helicopters, 763 artillery systems, 247 multiple launch rocket systems, 105 air defense systems, 2,678 vehicles and fuel tanks, 13 ships, 609 unmanned aerial vehicles, 217 cruise missiles, and 2,615 pieces of special equipment. On June 8, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu stated that Russian forces had repelled a Ukrainian attack near Novotoroivka, which is located in the Zaporizhzhia region just west of the Donetsk region line. This attack involved one of several newly formed Western-trained units, the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade in Velika Novosilka, which is also nearby. Shoigu made an unsubstantiated claim the battle involved up to 1,500 soldiers and 150 tanks and armored vehicles. Officials from Ukraine began indicating offensive operations in a number of locations over the following days. Zelensky made it clear that a counteroffensive was underway during a June 10 news conference with Justin Trudeau, the visiting Canadian Prime Minister. Ukrainian sources and Russian military bloggers, some of whom have close ties to military or intelligence units, partially corroborate Ukraine's claims that it has recaptured at least 6 villages in recent days. The majority of the captured settlements are located south of Velika Novoselka, a town in the Donetsk region that is close to the administrative border with the Zaporizhzhia region. They are located on the Mokry Yali River. Velika Novoselka, according to at least one Western military expert, is currently the primary focus or center of gravity of Ukrainian operations. In a Telegram post on June 13, General Valery Zaluzhny, Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's armed forces, stated that both defensive and offensive combat is ongoing in the country's east and south. Russia has been constructing a network of defensive lines across substantial portions of the region ever since it seized large portions of the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions in the early weeks of the invasion in February 2022. Minefields, anti-tank fencing, trenches, and concrete firing posts. There have also been reports of intimidating defensive lines in the eastern Kharkiv region near the administrative border with the Luhansk region and around the city of Bakhmut, which Russia has nearly captured after a 10-month campaign there. According to a report that was released on June 9 by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a Washington think tank, Russian fortifications are the most extensive defensive works in Europe since World War II. Some of the estimated 300,000 reservists called up in a major mobilization ordered by President Vladimir Putin in September have also been added to Russia's front line and other units. Military experts have predicted that Ukraine would have a very hard time breaking through Russian lines because of this alone, especially if one of the goals was to push south toward the Sea of Azov to break the land bridge that lets Russians get to the occupied Crimean Peninsula by land. Major Maxim Zorin, commander of Ukraine's 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, stated the defense system itself is built quite skillfully. His unit is fighting for positions around Bakhmut and reportedly has already taken some higher ground positions. Ukrainian forces have reported extensive defensive lines around the city of Tokmak in the Zaporizhzhia region. These lines have been supplemented by Russian artillery and attack helicopters, making it difficult for Russian forces to advance. Additionally, the main, even more formidable lines, some 10 to 15 kilometers to the south, have yet to be struck by Ukrainian forces. Additionally, the Russian Defense Ministry asserted that its forces had captured or destroyed weapons supplied by NATO, such as German Leopard tanks and American Bradley infantry vehicles. A Telegram video showed a number of disabled vehicles near the Orikha village, west of Velika Novoselka. Up to 17 Bradleys and at least 3 Leopards were said to have been damaged in unconfirmed totals. On June 13, Putin claimed that Ukrainian losses were approaching a level that could be described as catastrophic. While meeting with a group of prominent Russian military bloggers, he stated, "We have 10 times fewer losses than the Ukrainian armed forces." However, a number of exaggerated claims regarding the war in Ukraine have been made by Putin and other Russian officials. Western observers doubt that the loss of several pieces of equipment, with or without commensurate casualties, should be considered a failure, even though Russia's military and sympathetic bloggers boasted about destroying NATO equipment. Germany's Leopard is regarded as one of the most advanced tanks in the world. Major General Sergei Goryachev, Chief of Staff of the 36th Combined Arms Army, was killed by a Ukrainian missile on June 12 in the Zaporizhzhia region, according to a prominent Russian military blogger. Independent verification of the report, which was later removed, is lacking. However, if the report is true, he would be at least the 5th Russian general to die since the invasion began, giving Ukraine reason to boast. Another unconfirmed incident occurred on June 14 when a Ukrainian HIMARS unit struck a unit of Russia's 20th Combined Arms Army waiting for the arrival of another general near the village of Kreminna in the eastern Luhansk region. A number of Russian military bloggers, including one with connections to the defense ministry, claimed that no troops had been killed. Ukrainian forces have repeatedly used HIMARS, a multiple rocket launcher supplied by the United States that can be outfitted with high-precision rockets, to target Russian weapons depots and bases.